Preface. Don't read this book. If you picked up this book because you're intrigued by the short-term goal of making $1 million in 12 months, let me start by quoting Dan Sullivan. Being an entrepreneur is a life sentence. Actually, it's more like an epic adventure, but it does last a lifetime. It's not a tale of orderly and sequential wins. It's a long and uneven road peppered with heartbreaking losses, crippling self-doubt, episodes of depression, and the heaviness of carrying everything on your shoulders. Like any adventure, though, there's something truly valuable at the end of that road. After facing challenges you couldn't have anticipated or prepared for, there's victory. There's freedom. There's the ability to call your own shots. And, most importantly, there's a new hero at the end of the adventure. You. There is no game more challenging and rewarding than entrepreneurship. Once you get the itch, it never really gets fully scratched. Once you get the first taste, you never turn back. It will be that way for life. Once you are called to be an entrepreneur, there's simply no other satisfying way you can spend your days. Starting a business requires more sacrifice than I ever imagined. So why do I do it? Because there's nothing else I can do and be happy doing. If this sounds like you, if freedom is your calling and you have to have it, then consider this book the roadmap to your adventure. In these pages, you'll learn how to become a 7-figure entrepreneur. This plan is proven to work. Hundreds of success stories have come before you, making your path easier. Entrepreneurs are weird. We are few. We see things differently. The rest of the world debates us, judges us, and even sometimes blames us for achieving success. But we create change, and the world needs more people like us. If you're one of the weird ones, then this is your invitation to answer the call. If you're not, then please don't keep listening. Believe me, I'm not saying this to try to create false intrigue. I'm dead serious. This is a warning, not a sales pitch. This book's roadmap is effective enough to even turn the moderately curious or the window shopper into a successful entrepreneur. If you casually go down this road and you commit to the plan within this book, you may very well find yourself responsible for $1 million business. I don't use the word responsible lightly. I wouldn't wish entrepreneurship on anyone who's not cut out for it or dedicated to the amount of work it takes. This roadmap is for entrepreneurs who have been searching, seeking, grinding their way to success. This has worked for single moms who desperately need to change. It has worked for bankrupt families who needed new hope. It has worked for young kids who wanted to do something different with their lives. You will meet many of these success stories in the pages of this book. With hope, you'll see yourself in their tales. But this method also causes challenges for those who aren't ready for the blood, sweat, and tears it requires. Starting a business without the right mindset will consume your days, destroy your work-life balance, and make you question what the hell you're doing on a moment-to-moment basis. You'll doubt yourself in ways you didn't know possible. In fact, I recently heard billionaire Dan Pena say he would never do it all over again. The pursuit becomes all-consuming and never really ends. Plus, he said, there were too many missed days with his children. You have the chance here to simply turn this off and walk away. Or, hey, send this to a friend you know who has masochistic tendencies. If you're happy with your life, keep living it how it is. Wake up in your bed tomorrow, enjoy your breakfast, and be thankful there are crazy people in this world who will give up everything to bleed over their businesses in pursuit of success. But if you're 100% certain that you're one of those crazy people, strap in. In listening to this book, you're committing to the process of building something great. If you follow this roadmap, there's a good chance that you will have $1 million business 1 year from now. This is your epic adventure, and your journey begins now. Introduction. When I was a kid, I asked my dad how much $1 million was. My dad was a middle school teacher for more than 30 years. He gave his life to his profession to provide for his kids and to create retirement. As a teacher, he never had much of a chance of being a millionaire. Ryan, he said, if I worked for my entire career and never spent any of the money I ever made, then I would have about $1 million. It took me a few years to process that, but if you run the numbers, it makes sense. Once you factor in taxes, teachers tend to take home an average of about $40,000 a year. To make $1 million, they'd have to work for 25 years and never spend a dime. Geez. I decided then and there that I wanted to become a millionaire. I don't know why. Perhaps I equated being a millionaire with being free. I mean, hell, $1 million invested at just 6% interest would bring in the same annual income my dad earned for the rest of my life. I'd be able to do whatever I wanted. Ignore for the moment the adorably naive kid think that $40,000 a year equals doing whatever one wants. But at the time, I was just a business-minded kid with no idea what the runway to becoming a millionaire was like. After reading up on some obvious ways of making money, real estate, the stock market, I realized these paths seemed long, slow, and pretty dull. I didn't like the lack of control inherent in investing either. Making $1 million that way would mean rising and falling with the whims of the market, and I wanted to carve my own path. At the age of 12, I concluded the only way to make $1 million on my own terms was to start a business. My adventure hit a particularly exciting plot twist nearly 20 years later. One very surreal morning at the age of 29, I found myself staring in awe at a bank balance that had multiplied overnight into 8 figures. That morning, my business partner Matt had called early. I'd known Matt all through my 20s, and our individual adventures had taken the same path for much of it. We'd built businesses together, stayed up into the wee hours talking about politics and religion, shared our biggest wins and most crushing losses, and even become fathers in the same year. Our relationship, like any business partnership, was a lot like marriage. We had a rule that no matter what was going on, we'd always pick up the phone if the other called. When I answered the phone, Matt sounded happy. He hadn't sounded happy in weeks. We'd been going through a stressful time in our business, probably the most stress either of us had experienced up until that point. But his voice then sounded like he was barely holding back the biggest grin of all time. "Did you see it?" he asked. I knew right then and there what he was talking about, but I couldn't bring myself to really believe it yet. "It's in there?" I asked. "I don't want to spoil the surprise for you, but yeah, it's in there." "Really?" "Really." I opened up my bank's website, logged in, and there it was. $10 million. The most money I'd ever seen in my life. We'd successfully sold a majority stake in our fitness supplement company, Sheer Strength, and the wire from the purchasing company had finally landed. It was 10 times more money than my father ever saw over the course of his entire career. In fact, it was enough money that neither Matt nor I would ever have to work a day in our lives again. "Well, I guess. Have a good weekend," Matt said, laughing. "Oh, I'm gonna," I replied. This has nothing to do with luck. What do you do when $10 million shows up in your bank account overnight? That's exactly what happened to me and Matt, but it wasn't by accident. It was the result of years of direct planning and work. After a decade of trial and error, we achieved the freedom that we'd always hoped to find. If freedom is your goal, then this book is your starting point. Throughout your journey, this book will be your guide, taking you through every step of building $1 million business and helping you overcome each hurdle. I've already experienced these hurdles many, many times, as have other entrepreneurs I've worked with and the students who follow the methods I lay out in my podcast and my YouTube videos. We've walked the road ahead of you, so we know where the potholes are. Actually, that's part of why I wrote this book. It fires me up to know that I can help other entrepreneurs have a smoother journey on their own path to freedom. Matt and I didn't have a guidebook when we were building our business. We did have a mentor, Travis, an incredible human who helped us out a great deal. No one we knew had ever built $1 million business, let alone sold one. In fact, most of the entrepreneurs we hung out with were more like wantrepreneurs. They were the kind of entrepreneur you see on YouTube these days, showing off their wealth and cars and girls. Lesson number 1, nobody has ever gotten rich by spending all their cash on luxury automobiles. Lesson number 2, having a girlfriend doesn't make you rich. It's usually the opposite. That was never our scene. We wanted something real. Matt once said to me, I know we're going to be successful. We'll work hard at it until we do. Whether it's this idea or not, I don't know, but we'll get there. If you can build that same mindset, you're going to be just fine. As longtime aspiring entrepreneurs, we'd seen plenty of ideas come and go. We saw many entrepreneurs come and go too. We outlasted them one by one. We tried countless business models and good ideas in our attempts to achieve success. And we had fun doing it. Honestly, the easiest and possibly the most fun time of being an entrepreneur is the very beginning, when you're amped up on excitement. You stay up late at night, just like Matt and I used to do, talking about all the amazing success you're going to have. You dream about the day your bank account is suddenly going to explode tenfold overnight. These blustery late-night conversations happen between 19-year-old business nerds all over the world every day, and they usually lead to jack squat. With Matt and me, those conversations led to many false starts and failed ventures. We laugh about them today. It took us 6 years to be ready, another year to come up with the idea for the method you'll learn in this book, and 4 years to build out the model that ultimately led to our $10 million payday. But if you take these steps that you'll learn in this book and go all in, it won't take you 10 years to be successful. It will take you just 12 months. Matt and I were the first to pioneer this method, mostly cobbling it together ourselves through sheer determination and hours upon hours of research and testing. Since we put it into practice and started to teach it to others, it has helped create hundreds of success stories. You'll meet the entrepreneurs behind many in this book. Looking at the $10 million in my bank account that day was a moment I knew for sure Matt and I hadn't just come up with a little side hustle on the internet. This wasn't some passive income scheme. This was real. When we sold Sheer Strength to an investment company and had multiple interested parties in the process, it really clicked for me. I realized this method works. It's scalable. It's repeatable. And big businesses want to buy what it creates. And if you decide to put yourself through the soul-sucking struggle that is entrepreneurship, you can be successful too. Go all in. Take another look at the title of this book. What does 12 months to $1 million immediately conjure in your mind? If the answer to that question is an easy path to getting rich or a quick way to make a few grand on the side, then this is going to be a tough year for you. You would probably be better off with a lottery ticket instead of a business. Make no mistake, what I'm offering you in this book will require a lot of work. You can't do this casually. While you can start it on the side, it's not a side hustle or a one-time gig. At some point, you'll need to go all in. When you do that, building $1 million business becomes possible. At the foundation of every successful business is one entrepreneur who is willing to put it all on the line and take the company to its first million. When change happens and wealth is created, there's always one person who puts it on his or her back and takes it on as a challenge. I live to empower that person. Contrary to what you might hear in the media, profit-driven capitalists create the greatest change in this world. I believe in this ethos so strongly that I personally invest in businesses my students and friends start. I want to be part of the change these entrepreneurs create. Entrepreneurs like Hanny, who discovered my podcast and started an outdoors company I fell in love with. I invested $85,000 in her handmade backpack company, Neat Pack. And companies like Onnit, a performance company started by my friend Aubrey Marcus, that has become the most loved human performance company in its industry. Or Outstanding Foods, a mushroom-based chip company that's part of a movement to create delicious snack foods that are also responsible. Every day, I spend my time advising and empowering entrepreneurs to build amazing things. Throughout the long years Matt and I spent building our method, I've documented our experiments and all of our many iterations, failures, and successes on my podcast and on my YouTube channel. The more I shared, the more others followed along and started sharing their journeys as well. An entire community of internet entrepreneurs began to form as we compiled hundreds of case studies, personal journeys, and stories of incredible success and crushing failure. Together, we all found our way. After Matt and I sold our company, I started capitalism.com, which empowers entrepreneurs to create change through business. I also started an annual event, the Capitalism Conference, where I bring together all the top entrepreneurs from whom I most want to learn and have them tell their stories to entrepreneurs like you. With the 12 months to 1 million method, we've inspired a community of entrepreneurs who are impacting their corners of the world. And I want you to be part of that community. Hundreds of people have told me that they built seven-figure businesses as a result of listening to the free information that I publish on the internet. All of this is a way of saying there are people rooting for you. We want you to succeed, but it's a huge responsibility. You have to commit. You have to go all in. I get approached by a lot of people looking for advice or to share the story of their business. You'd think this would get old quick, but honestly, it doesn't. I love talking about entrepreneurship, especially with people who are just as passionate about it as I am. I love talking about the tough stuff, the downfalls, and the struggles. It's the kind of stuff you just can't possibly understand unless you've been there. The one thing that drives me crazy, though, is when people approach me for advice on a foolproof, zero-risk, easy way to be successful. Regardless of what the internet tells you, this doesn't exist. If you're only pursuing the result, you're going to have a tough journey. If you are only focused on the someday goal of having $1 million business, then you will overlook the work that is right in front of you and fail to reach your goals at all. In this book, you'll learn why you have to go through each step in order, one by one, to achieve your goal, and why shortcuts will actually crash you into the side of the proverbial mountain. You can expect your fair share of bad days, self-doubt, and confusion along the way. We will overcome most of your challenges together, but for the next 12 months, expect a lot of long hours with no pay, countered by infrequent moments of deep joy, excitement, and passion. If you take one thing away from this book, though, it should be the deep realization that you can do this. You can come out the other side with a profitable business that sets you free for the rest of your life. 12 months to $1 million. I'm going to repeat the next sentence many times throughout this book. In fact, by the time you finish this, you'll have it memorized. It's that important. Here's how you build a $1 million business. If you have 4 products selling 25 sales a day at an average price point of $30, you have a $1 million business. When I tell people this simple formula, their eyes widen. They often don't believe me. Seriously, they say? That doesn't sound so hard. That sounds easy. As far as what to sell, this process will theoretically work for any type of business. That being said, I've seen the most success selling physical stuff, or as I call it, building a brand. A brand is simply a group of products, 3 to 5, that each serves the same customer. It's not complicated to follow the process I lay out, but it takes work to get there. The process includes a series of steps that can't be skipped. Imagine building a $1 million business like building a house. You have to carefully follow the blueprint or the whole thing falls apart. You can't just skip putting in the foundation in favor of painting the walls. In the chapters that follow, Here's what you'll discover. Number 1, the opportunity. What is the best opportunity for a new entrepreneur to build a successful business? Why is now the time to do it? How does the new landscape of e-commerce and social media create an environment of opportunity? And how do you fit into it all? In this chapter, you will discover why right now is the perfect time to create your pie, and why there are others who are ready and willing to buy a slice. Number 2, mindset. There's a reason not every entrepreneur becomes a successful entrepreneur, and psychology is a big piece of the puzzle. I'll take you through the development of the right mindset to take a business from 0 to 1 million in a year. 3, getting customers. A $1 million business doesn't start with a product. It starts with a person. Your first step in building your business must be identifying your customer and then answering his or her need. This builds a real brand, not just a revenue stream. If you get this piece right, you will have droves of repeat buyers who eagerly overpay for your products, thank you for it, and tell all their friends about you. 4, your product. Choosing the first product will be your biggest hurdle you face. It will take research, patience, and determination. Most importantly, it will require listening to what your customer is saying. I'll take you through the whole process from ideation to prototyping to refinement, helping you clear this hurdle in no time flat. 5, funding. Sure, you've got a great idea and you know to whom you're selling, but how do you fund your inventory? Here's how to bootstrap, borrow, or build your way to a self-sustaining revenue machine without stressing about money. 6, stacking the deck. How do you nearly guarantee that your first product is successful right out of the gate? Once you've decided what business you're in, we will work to ensure that you don't get stuck holding a product that no one wants. This is where you stack the deck so your launch day is set up to blast off. 7, launch. Your first product is ready to launch. What do you do now? Do you just let it ride? No. Here's where building relationships and a few strategic marketing tips will take your business from a single product to a world-class brand. And we'll cover what you need to do to reach your key growth point of 25 sales per day. 8, scaling. You've got one product selling 25 units a day. You've proven that you can get a product up and selling in the marketplace. Now it's time to launch products 2, 3, 4, and 5 and watch the snowball build into a $1 million revenue stream by the end of 12 months. 9, marketing. Sure, if you're friends with a ton of celebrities who will post about your brand on their Instagram, you're all set with marketing. But what if you're starting from scratch with no contacts and no marketing experience? Here's how you can build the right kind of marketing through relationships, influencers, and audiences, bringing your business to the level of a respected brand. 10, acquisition. What does it look like to sell your business? There are many buyers out there hungry for what you're building. Here's where you will learn how to navigate the process, lock in your payday, and decide what to do next. For many of the entrepreneurs I work with, when it comes to starting a business, it's not their first rodeo. Trouble is, they can see hundreds of different routes to financial freedom. They often dabble in a few. For a while, they dance with real estate investing, then they try Kindle publishing, then they land on affiliate marketing. It goes on and on. That confusion keeps them stuck. They can clearly see the various business models they can choose from, but the choice is the obstacle. There's a lack of clarity around which model or which product or which direction will get them all the way to their destination. The method outlined in this book is exactly how you're going to get there. I run an accelerator called The Back Room, which is for entrepreneurs who have crossed the $1 million mark. That will be you by the time we finish this book together. When we work together, we open up new opportunities. And my ultimate goal is to work with the businesses that excite me the most, join as a minority partner in the company, usually 20 to 40%, help the business grow from 7 figures to 8 figures, and get ready to sell the company. Some of our members have sold for $9 million, $20 million, even $50 million. I have another member who just received a $50 million valuation and another who was building a $100 million portfolio. All of them started exactly where you are right now, finding this plan, absorbing the method, and beginning the process of building their first $1 million business. Many of them got there in about a year, and they didn't have this book. You do. 1 year from now, you may find yourself in my living room, working with me inside my community, and readying your business to be sold for an amount of money that will change your entire family's life. That's my secret, selfish reason for writing this book. Many of you will end up being great people that I want to work with, building great businesses that I want to take part in. I had my day. I got my big win. To get where I want to go next, I'll need to create a lot of success stories in the process. I like to think of what we are building at capitalism.com as an online Shark Tank for entrepreneurs who are bold enough to create change in their lives and get rich in the process, or at the very least, be financially free. Before you begin, what I wish someone had told me. With this book in your hands, you have an advantage. You have the benefit of everything it took me 10 years and much failure to learn. You have the stories of dozens of entrepreneurs just like me, who have happily shared their own journeys in the hope that they can save you some stumbles. Distilling everything I wish I'd known when I'd started this journey took me a long time, but I believe the following 6 nuggets of wisdom would have set me up for a much faster and less painful road to success. Number 1, this is harder than you think. Becoming and succeeding as an entrepreneur is a lot like parenting. I can tell you it's hard. You can read books like this one that explain all the pitfalls and provide all the tips, but at the end of the day, you just cannot imagine how difficult it will be. Ask any parent and they will tell you the same thing. Raising children is harder than they ever thought. A lot of people start a family because they think it will bring a new level of love and fulfillment. They're not wrong. Being a parent has been and will always be a source of limitless joy. That being said, parenting is 10 times harder than one ever imagines, and there's no real way to prepare for it. Life tip, thank your parents. For those of us lucky enough to live today, we owe so much to our parents who gave up so much just so we could have a shot at this. They did the best they could, and any scars from childhood will only give you more fuel to succeed. The people who think that the entrepreneur life is easy almost always fail. More accurately, they think it will be easier than they've been told. After all, how hard can it be to hustle for 12 months for $1 million payday? You have to nurture your business. You have to live with it every hour of every day. Like a child, sometimes it calls for you in the middle of the night, and you have to get up to help it. People who plan for the easy ride get kicked in the teeth and they quit. Even if you enter knowing how hard this can be, you'll find the reality surprising. But knowing the challenges from the start gives you a much better shot to build something that works. Number 2, it's not about what you can get, but what you can create. One of the first mindset shifts you'll need to understand is the difference between value extraction and value creation. Too many people think that they are only out to get their slice of the pie of the limited value out there in the world. They walk up to a table that has a single pie, take a slice, and they think that's enough. They imagine that once all the slices are gone, that's it. There's no more money in the world. That's why people hate on billionaires or companies that don't pay enough taxes. They believe that the top 1% get rich by taking from others. The truth is, we create value. For every slice you take, you have to bake a whole other pie. Jeff Bezos got insanely rich because he changed the world. That's value creation. Far too many people come up to me and ask, how do I get my slice of the pie? That's dog-eat-dog world. That's hustling for every dollar. Stop thinking about what you can take and start recognizing the value you can create. Money is a byproduct of good work, and it will flow to you as soon as you make that switch. Number 3, growth is like interest. It compounds over time. A hustler lives from small win to small win. Tiny wins like buying things at garage sales and selling them on eBay, never compound. You might work really hard and make extra money, but it's unlikely you'll become a millionaire. If you follow my plan, results will stack extremely quickly. They might seem insignificant at first, but after a year, you will have a hard-charging income stream that continues to grow for years to come. One of my favorite books is called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. In it, he argues that extraordinary results do not come from big wins. They come from incremental steps forward that compound over time. For instance, you don't get fat by overeating one time, you get fat when you consistently overeat. The same is true with wealth. You don't get rich with one big sale. You get rich by doing the right thing for long enough for it to compound. In my experience, it takes about 12 months of consistent compounding efforts to create a successful, profitable business. Everything we do in life and all the success we have comes from habits. More to the point, it comes from setting long-term goals and using those habits to drive toward them. Whether I'm trying to get fit, get rich, or get happy, I need to think long-term. If I treat my customers well, they'll be happy. If my customers are happy, they'll leave good reviews. Good reviews build a loyal customer base. Efforts and actions compound, and the more long-term you can think, the more successful you will be. Number 4, your business impacts way more than your bank account. I wish someone had told me way back when I was getting started just how big this was all going to get. I had no idea what I was building or what it would mean years later. Had I known, I would have gone even harder. I would have been even more aggressive. You'll soon discover that big brands are out there looking to acquire small brands to gain market share. They are literally banking on entrepreneurs like you to build something great so they can jump on board. I never knew how many people were rooting for me. I never knew this process could inspire so many people, or that I would take those same people on as students and watch them transform their lives based on my designs. Even before that, your business directly impacts your customers. We all have brands that we are passionate about. For me, it's Quest Nutrition and Zevia, and we love to buy from those brands. You will be building something that directly impacts people on that level. People get into this life thinking way too small. They want the added revenue stream, they want a little extra, and they have no clue just how big this can get. There are a million dominoes ready to fall, and all it takes is someone with the drive to push the first one. Every micro decision is a reflection of what happens at scale. I might make 9 videos that get 100 views apiece, but my 10th one is seen by 100,000 people. 1 out of every 100 videos will go viral and be seen by millions. That's why it's a good idea to treat every customer well every single time. 9 out of 10 are going to say, "Thanks for my thing." 1 is going to brag about you to 10 of their friends though, and 1 out of 100 is going to be an influencer with a following of 10,000 people. 1 out of 1,000 is going to be a retail partner who's buying you to see if they want to have you in 1,000 stores. Every roll of the dice matters. Number 5, having a partner can be a blessing or a curse if done wrong. You may decide to go into this business with a partner. After all, I had Matt by my side in building, scaling, and selling Sheer Strength, and it felt just as good to share success with him as it did to have his help when things went wrong. Great partnerships are not 50-50. They are 100-100. You have to punt the expectation that you will each do an equal amount of work, because there will be times when you drive the ship and times when your partner carries the torch. If you can take total and full ownership for your own results, then I would highly suggest bringing on a partner with the same mentality. When 2 people come together and they both take total responsibility for the result of the project, it can be magical. It can also be a disaster if it's the wrong fit. It's important to understand there's a difference between a friend and a partner. Sure, you can form a company with your buddy, have a lot of fun during your meetings, and make a few bucks. If you're lucky, the stars will align and you'll have a functional work relationship that leads to company growth. Most likely, though, you'll end up like the majority of entrepreneurs, broke and starting from square one. There are two types of entrepreneurs: those who drive vision and those who build. It's incredibly rare for one person to be both a visionary and a builder. Visionaries are highly energetic, they're highly emotional, they come up with new ideas. But in contrast, builders are stable, they're organized, they're calm. Visionaries make horrible managers, so people usually hate working for them. But they're great at selling and making big, bold decisions. Builders rarely think big, but they are fantastic at managing details and ensuring that nothing falls through the cracks. A visionary needs a builder to get anything done, and a builder needs a visionary to build something that matters. When you bring these personalities together, they can accomplish great things. For example, take another former business partner of mine, Sean. We built and sold a small yoga business a few years ago. While we were in the initial building phase, he couldn't get his head out of the planning process, and he couldn't make any decisions. He's the builder, I'm the visionary. Every time he got stuck, I pushed us toward the next step. It forced him to play catch up. At the same time, his need to be prepared meant we always had answers to questions that arose. Together, we built an actual business. We balanced each other out. To this day, Sean says, if it wasn't for you, I'd still be looking at spreadsheets, trying to decide what product to sell. I reply, without you, I'd still be thinking a year into the future about how to scale $1 million business that I haven't even built yet. Here's a general rule of thumb. If your partner has the same qualities that you have, then one of you is unnecessary. It's called a partnership for a reason. Both of you need to bring an element to the table. If one of you is the operator, the other needs to be the big thinker. If you're great at networking, the other person needs to understand logistics and operations. You need to have complementary personalities, total trust, and the same goals. Sean is the most humble, balanced, kindest human being ever. And he wouldn't have gotten anywhere without crazy old me. I'm a spacey, emotional, overly optimistic driver, and I wouldn't have gotten anywhere without him. Number 6, no matter what, the chips stay on the table. Despite the going all in analogy, I don't compare this life to gambling. In this game, the house doesn't win because you stayed to play. Being an entrepreneur means thinking in years rather than months. The worst thing that you can do in any cycle is trade a long-term risk for a short-term win. When it comes to building a 7-figure business, here's the mindset you should take. The longer you can keep your chips on the table, the bigger your end result is going to be. That means not taking an income from the business as soon as you're profitable. It means keeping the profits in play for the business rather than for your own bank account. Put simply, it means reinvesting rather than recouping. The time frame I recommend for reinvesting is a year, at least. During that time, you'll be working for very little payoff. You'll be putting every dime you make back into the business. If you can stick it out, then you will increase your chances of success exponentially. Your 12 months starts now. I tell my students to prepare for a year because that's how long it takes. That year isn't spent sitting around. You're working, growing, and building towards your goals. Those habits you develop only grow stronger, and that time builds up quality exponentially. Think about it like compound interest. Let's say you sell your business after 6 months and make $100,000 on the sale. Just imagine how much more you could have made had you waited and kept building for the entire year. You could have grown into new markets, cemented your customer base, and improved your product line. By giving into the appeal of a short-term payout, you've potentially cost yourself millions. For some of you, the big question is surviving that first year. You have bills to pay, and you need to support yourself. Holding off for a long-term payout can be grueling. Later on, we'll discuss methods you can use to fund your endeavor, but those aren't guarantees either. Your first year might be entirely on your own shoulders. You might have to work a job you hate while sinking every waking hour into your business. Author and trainer Craig Ballantyne famously says, "Success is simple once you accept how hard it is." To set your expectations, I often split the 12-month process into 3 stages. The grind, months 1 to 4, the growth, months 5 to 8, and the gold, months 9 to 12. Most people fail because they never make it out of the grind. Those are the initial months in which you make decisions about what product to sell, what your price point should be, and what launch strategy you will use. You're in the grind until you're taking sales every day on your first product. This book is designed to get you out of the grind as quickly as humanly possible. If you do the steps outlined, you'll leave in about 4 months after you finish reading. Your challenge will be making fast, bold decisions and being okay with them being less than perfect. Otherwise, you will overthink every step, and you will stay stuck at stage 0, the state in which you're just thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. At your beginning stages, speed is your friend, and every sale, every review, and every comment matters a great deal. When you have a following of about 1,000 people, and you have at least 20 reviews on your product, you will likely get to 25 sales per day quickly. The second stage is the growth, which is where the snowball really starts to build. Your job in this stage is to maintain 25 sales a day and roll out as many products as you can comfortably handle without distracting yourself. Remember, just 3 to 5 products selling 25 sales per day is $1 million business. In this stage, you'll release new products to the same group of customers as your first product. You will release them one by one and get each product to 25 sales per day. Momentum will build faster because you won't have to go through the same decision hurdles the second time around. About 6 months in, you'll be able to smell 7 figures, and you'll be tempted to complicate the process. Fight your urge to get distracted, at least until you've released a minimum of 3 products. The third stage is the gold. Here, you'll start to experiment with different advertising formats. You might run some Instagram ads, sponsor a podcast, or pay an influencer. This is also the stage in which you finally might consider paying yourself, and you can call yourself a full-time entrepreneur. However, until you're at this point, your job is to stay as laser-focused on following the plan as you can. There will be days when the sacrifice is excruciating. There will be days when you know you have a 6-figure windfall if you just sell it and walk away. Hold on. You can survive another few months, another few quarters, until you've reached your goal. After all, the title of this book isn't 6 months to $1 million. Prepare yourself for one hell of a year. Chapter 1. The Landscape of Opportunity. One of the most common questions I'm asked is, am I too late? Is there still opportunity, or have I missed the boat? Trends change, fads come and go with the wind, and it can sometimes feel like you're always chasing relevancy. While it's true you need to keep up to date to stay in the game, the tempo is a lot more manageable than one might think. I started my first business on my parents' dial-up computer, hand-coding websites in raw HTML on Dreamweaver. If you know what that is, you're officially old in internet years. I built websites, got them to rank in Google, made some money, and used it to pay for college. Then Google went through some changes and I had to adjust. The puck keeps moving. You keep learning, you keep growing. Some people resist marketplace changes because their primary income stream feels under threat. At the same time, those changes open up new opportunities. Today, there are more available tools and opportunities than ever. When I started my first business, there were no website tools to help you launch a site in just a few minutes. There was no social media. There was no YouTube. There was no way to get your name out there. You'd think that when those things came about, everyone would have rejoiced, right? Finally, an easy, fast, free way to build your audience. But guess what? For every one person celebrating, there were 2 out there complaining. People feared that social media would put bloggers out of business. They thought Facebook would kill email marketing. Change is inevitable, but those changes always come with opportunity. So there's really no such thing as missing the boat. For example, Amazon's Fulfilled by Amazon program, or FBA, was one of the greatest developments in the last few years. FBA made it possible for any person on the planet to quickly and easily open his or her own store, and Amazon would do all the fulfillment from its warehouse. Don't underestimate how massive a shift this was. For the first time in history, you could open up a store on the internet's version of Fifth Avenue, pay zero rent, and be in front of millions of customers. For the first few years on FBA, it was the Wild West. It was easy to rank for keywords on Amazon, and competition was low. Hustlers poured into the scene selling everything from iPhone cases to kayaks. Anything you put on Amazon.com would sell because FBA made it so wide open. As my mentor Travis put it, it was so wide open that idiots got rich. When you have a massive shift like that, you almost always have a Wild West period, followed by a big correction or consolidation. For years, I warned my podcast listeners and followers to use the opportunities on Amazon to build a real brand. Those who did it made millions of dollars. Those who did not got swallowed up when big players came onto the scene selling spatulas for 50 cents cheaper than they were. As that landscape changed, people started complaining it wasn't easy anymore, or that the opportunity on Amazon or anywhere online was gone. Well, yeah, like anything, the puck has moved and new opportunities continue to open. And I'm just going to go off script for a second because after coronavirus in early 2020, this happened again. People complained that things were changing and retail stores went out of business. But Amazon and other internet platforms continued to grow. So when there's changes in the economy or changes in the marketplace, there's always new opportunity. Always. Now is still the best time to start a new business. Here's the truth. If you are building a business online, you have more opportunities than ever before. When Amazon was new, there was no Kickstarter, which makes it possible for you to fund your business with nearly $0. There was no Instagram, which makes it possible to put your product in front of tens of thousands of people in a heartbeat. We'll cover all these opportunities in future chapters. But for now, just know that there will always be opportunities, and we are still only in the second inning of the internet business landscape. Furthermore, there is always a demand for good products and good brands. I mean, if Folgers, which is objectively crappy coffee, can continue to be a billion-dollar brand, then there's opportunity for you too. The landscape will continue to change, and competition will always be part of the process, but you can still win, especially if you put these steps to work. Why old brands buy new ones. Kimberly-Clark is a huge publicly traded company that specializes in paper products. They cover everything from personal hygiene products to family care. You probably know them as the parent company for Kleenex and Cottonelle. Now, if you were the CEO of Kimberly-Clark and you wanted to sell your products like they did from 1975 to 2006, then you'd run a bunch of ads on TV. That's where the media lived. That was the best way to reach a wide band of customers. Kimberly-Clark handles all its own manufacturing and distribution internally, and no other company can compete with that. But today, the game has changed, especially for big brands. Today, a random person named Norm can build a seven-figure business selling party hats from his dorm room. He can pay someone overseas to make a product specifically for a Batman party. Then he can directly market to parents holding superhero parties for their 3-year-olds. If Norm continues to expand his business, a major paper company might come calling. They will see that Norm has a tiny monopoly on paper Batman hats, and they will want to own that distribution. I tell you this because that's the strategy that most big brands follow. They buy up other smaller brands to expand their market share. It used to be that big brands owned everything. It was impossible to compete with the big brands because they owned the distribution and the advertising. But the internet, especially Amazon, Shopify, Kickstarter, Facebook and Instagram, they changed all that. Now it's possible for small shops to quickly hit pay dirt. You just need to define your space and build your business for a specific market. The monopoly on distribution is gone. As a result, 1- and 2-person businesses can start selling a handful of products on Amazon, Shopify, Kickstarter, or social media and outsell the big brands, at least to their target customer. That creates opportunity for you to get your name on the board in this game. But it's more than just an opportunity for you to build a business. It's also an opportunity to get noticed by the big brands and get bought out by them. Why would a big conglomerate like Kimberly-Clark or Procter & Gamble buy a small brand like yours? Very simply put, because they can't innovate as fast as new companies. They're too big. They're too unwieldy. It's kind of like when Facebook bought Instagram or Twitter bought Periscope. Facebook bought Instagram for $1 billion when it was just 9 months old. Why? Because Instagram grew so quickly, it was easier for Facebook to just buy it. In today's marketplace, instead of building a product and trying to sell it to a business, what you do is corner a market for that business to swallow. Small businesses can innovate a lot faster than major brands can. They can product test via social media engagement. They can make targeted changes to their products according to what their audience is telling them. Kimberly-Clark can't reconfigure its entire product line because a few Amazon reviews expose a pain point. At this point, they're simply too complex to roll with the changes requested by individual customers. But you can. Just ask Peter Rahal, the founder of RX Bar, a real food protein bar made for athletes who want to keep their diets clean. Peter founded RX Bar in 2013 in his parents' basement. The red food mixer that he used to blend together the dates, the nuts, and the eggs is still on display at the company's headquarters in Chicago. It's not as if there was a lack of protein bars on the planet. Endurance athletes had their bar. It was called the Cliff Bar, and that business also followed the recipe in this book. Low-carb dieters had Quest bars. Bodybuilders had Met RX bars and Power bars. It seemed like the world didn't need another food bar or even another packaged snack. But there was no food bar specifically for CrossFit athletes. That was Peter's target customer. Just 3 years after founding RX Bar, Peter got a call from Kellogg's. Kellogg's knew that it couldn't make a good company as quickly as Peter had done, so they bought him out instead. Kellogg's paid young Peter, then just 3 years into his entrepreneurial journey, $600 million. In financial terms, we call that a good return on investment. Chances are you've eaten an RX bar, or a Cliff Bar, or a Quest bar, even if you aren't a CrossFit athlete or a bodybuilder. And that, again, is the difference between brands and products. Products appeal to one person at one time, but a brand appeals to a group of people first, and then it gets adopted by everyone else. Products make a little bit of money for a short amount of time. Brands get acquired for millions of dollars. The online brand cycle. I mentioned being in the second inning earlier. Right now, we're still in the early stages of this new cycle of online brand creation. The first wave started with people buying on Amazon. The ease of that website made it possible for anyone to sell a product. Then it became possible to create your own e-commerce platform on your business's website using tools like Shopify to streamline the buying process for the customer. It's not the Wild West anymore, but social media's influence, immediacy, and impact has more than outweighed the value of the freedom of those days. Your opportunity is the same. Anyone who says differently isn't seeing the entire landscape of possibility. Even previously untouchable industries like fashion are being disrupted by entrepreneurs like you. Recently, I needed to buy new pants. Let me be perfectly clear about something. I have no sense of style whatsoever. I'm a dad and I dress like one. I've always struggled with fashion. My reference point for being cool was wearing my favorite hand-me-downs in high school. To keep my sanity, I buy simple, comfortable clothing that sort of matches. And I resonate with brands that make this easy for me. A couple of new-ish brands, Mizzen & Main and Public Rec, targeted me with ads. Mizzen & Main with podcast ads, and Public Rec with Instagram ads. It cost them pennies to show up in front of me, and I've spent thousands of dollars with both businesses. Did I discover them from shopping at a retail store? Nope. Did I discover them through TV ads or even from a friend's recommendation? Nope. I discovered both with tiny, niche advertising that cost those companies next to nothing. And now I buy their clothes and tell all my friends about them. In fact, the founder of Mizzen & Main, Kevin Lavelle, spoke at one of my Capitalism Conference events, where he shared how he built the company. There was no clothing line specifically for active men, and wearing traditional dress attire felt restricting. So he made the company for himself and people like him, and it took off like a rocket. While new companies like Public Rec and Mizzen & Main were growing in market share, industry leader Diesel, a major clothing brand that reigned supreme for decades, filed for bankruptcy. This is where we are in the cycle. Small brands grow quickly, and big brands are scrambling to keep up. The old way of hoping that your product takes off is null and void. Today, your idea and your product can partner with the biggest online retailers in the world. To start, you just need to define your audience, launch one product, get it to 25 sales per day, and then repeat until you have $1 million business. From there, a new world of opportunities will open up for you. It was a true sign of the times when Amazon bought Whole Foods in August 2017. This, for the first time, was the merger of the old way and the new. The first time an internet retailer purchased a physical retailer. Just 10 years prior, this would have sounded absurd. Internet businesses don't buy real businesses. Internet retailers don't put real retailers out of business. But today, your brand may begin by targeting a very small niche, serving a tiny group of people, and expand to the masses very quickly. Remember RX Bar. And it's now inevitable that brands that do well online will show up everywhere. Think of it this way. If your product wins on Amazon, in a few years, it'll be on the shelf of every Whole Foods in the country. Amazon has all the buyer data and will be able to identify if your protein powder is performing well in, say, Atlanta, Georgia. And if it is, then they can immediately put it on every shelf at every Whole Foods in Atlanta, followed by the rest of the country. In fact, this is already starting to happen. One of our community members ranked #1 on Amazon for a specific weight loss supplement. Soon, it was featured in every Whole Foods across the country. Shortly after, it was picked up by every grocery chain in America. And that's the next stage of this cycle, the merging of the online and offline brands and the acquisition of small brands by the big brands. Moving forward, the key to fast growth is going very, very micro. The more specific an audience you can target, the faster you will grow. The more niche your products, the faster you will be able to release products and get to the first million. If you do that, you will be prepared for the next round of opportunities as they open up. As other major brands start to adjust to e-commerce, more distribution will exist for small brands like yours. Walmart.com is a great example of an opportunity that should expand in the future. If anyone can compete with Amazon, it's Walmart. It has the infrastructure, the reach, and the recognition. If Walmart is smart, it will take whatever product is doing well on Walmart.com and roll it out in each of its 35,000 stores. That's an audience of millions handpicked to view a proven product. You would do well to pay attention to that. If you can win on one of these platforms with your marketing, you can start to win as a brand. When you prove yourself a viable brand, you get bought up by the big companies. I believe the day will come when Facebook buys a retail conglomerate like Target. You will advertise on Facebook Marketplace, and the product will be sent from your nearest Target. The old brands and the new brands are merging, and the world is waiting for your small brand to enter the fold. How to create $1 billion with a tweet. In 2014, the famous investor Carl Icahn wrote on Twitter that he thought Apple's stock was undervalued. He said he just bought a ton of the underpriced stock. Apple's stock absolutely soared in the days after that tweet. Carl added billions of dollars to a publicly traded company because he tweeted about it. How does somebody do that? I watched it happen and was absolutely fascinated. He had fewer followers than some news pundits, but he added billions to a company. That's the power of having a responsive audience on the internet. Investors follow Carl Icahn. When he says a stock is undervalued, his community follows. When you influence the right crowd, you can put any message on the map. Author and entrepreneur Tim Ferriss is another great example. Tim literally creates trends because his audience is so responsive. There's a famous Forbes article called The Tim Ferriss Effect, which outlines the growth of brands after Tim mentions them. Many brands can point to record sales days after Tim discusses them on his podcast. In fact, entire brands have been launched on the back of his audience. The mushroom coffee company, Four Sigmatic, originally caught fire by advertising on Tim's podcast, and their Amazon sales took off. Today, you'll find them in retail stores all over the world. The average person on the street likely doesn't know Carl Icahn or Tim Ferriss, but those two guys have enough of a dedicated base to literally put other companies on the map anytime they happen to mention them. Heck, Whole Foods reported running out of stock on a brand of sardines that Tim once mentioned on his podcast. We live in a world where Kylie Jenner, the youngest sister of the Kardashian clan, can use strategies like this to become the world's youngest self-made billionaire in history. She didn't get there through the reality show she starred on for most of her adolescence. She didn't get there through licensing deals, endorsements, or appearance fees. She got there exactly the same way you're going to get to your first million, by using an online audience she built to boost a small internet business into a huge success. Now, I get you're not starting out with the kind of built-in audience Kylie had. For a time, her Instagram was the #1 most followed account on the platform. She definitely had a leg up. But in every other way, her process was the same one you're going to learn and use through this book. She identified an audience, young, social media savvy, beauty product devotees. She created a brand to serve that audience, Kylie Cosmetics. And she came up with a single launch product that capitalized on her most famous and coveted physical asset, Kylie Lip Kits. The hype surrounding her product launch was insane. The audience she built was so stoked to throw down money for a product that no one had ever seen that the product completely sold out, earning Kylie $19 million in revenue on the very first day. 18 months in, Kylie Cosmetics had earned $420 million in revenue. Within 2 years, it was valued at $1 billion. The important takeaway here isn't that you need to go start a reality show with your posse of sisters to spend a decade building the kind of online audience that would take you to 10 figures in less than 2 years. The takeaway is that with the right combination of online audience and audience-targeted brand, success is a matter of course. Start with the person. You don't have to get 1 million followers to have $1 million business. You need a fraction of advertising and a fraction of brand building, along with 3 to 5 products that get about 25 customers a day. At the beginning, that means going all in on the few people who notice you, follow you, and buy from you. It will seem trivial at first, but the snowball will build over the next year due to diffusion. One of my college professors called it the diffusion theory of marketing. With every new idea or product, you have a bell curve of adoption. At the very beginning, you have a small but loud group of innovators who talk about the product. Consider your techie friend who buys something new and won't stop talking about it. They talk about it until they get the attention of the early adopters, then the masses, and finally the laggards. Think about smartphones. You had the tech innovators who thought they were cool, so they told their friends and brought them in as early adopters. Then, after a few years, even grandma has an iPhone. Now the innovators are moving on to the next thing. I saw all of this and started to wonder how to use this to my advantage. Could I make enough noise to kickstart the engine toward $1 million company? I'm not Carl Icahn or Tim Ferriss, but I got to thinking about how to use their principles to my advantage. By getting a core fan base for your product, you can write your own check. Take a small group of supporters, or those innovators or early adopters. Combine that with a platform like Amazon, Kickstart, or Walmart.com. Use social media to sustain a little momentum. Then the snowball really starts rolling toward those 100 sales a day you ultimately want. A few hundred people built into a loyal customer base is all it takes for this business model to be life-changing. That's why Carl and Tim and all these micro-brand examples are relevant. Identity marketing and what it means for you. I have several students who sell coffee. Some work with expensive, high-quality products, so their messaging and market is the hoity-toity, bougie coffee drinker. I have another student focusing on moms, and her entire marketing message is, wouldn't the world be a better place if women connected over cups of coffee? On the other hand, you have a company like Black Rifle Coffee. If you've never seen Black Rifle's ads, the company is worth a Google. Just make sure there are no kids in the room. Its advertising boldly caters to conservative, gun-owning men who refuse to give their money to liberal Starbucks. They don't talk about flavors, suppliers, or methods. They simply show themselves shooting guns and invite gun owners to drink their coffee. Their customers drink it up. It's identity marketing, and it works. What's the difference between Black Rifle Coffee and other coffee companies? When it comes to the product, both might be using the exact same beans, but the brand, more specifically, the person they targeted, is completely different. If you identify your person and give them exactly what he or she wants, you can build $1 million business even if you sell the same type of product that your competitors do. But you won't be competing with them. You will target a different person. A few years ago, Miller Lite was losing market share to competitors. Truth be told, it was getting its butt kicked. The company brought in a professional branding agency to help turn things around and find its new marketing hook. Miller Coors took this agency around its breweries, highlighting everything that went into making its beer. After doing a deep dive on the beer maker's target market and brand story, everyone waited for the new ad. The marketing company came back with Miller Lite, it's triple hops brewed. Some scoffed at the suggestion because all beer is triple hops brewed. However, no one else was saying it, so it didn't exist in the public mindset yet. Miller Coors launched a campaign, and sure enough, customers ate up the idea of its triple hops brewed beer, somehow tasting better than the competitor's beer. Audiences are savvier now, so you have to do more than just market the product. You have to market the customer. A couple years ago, I invited Dollar Shave Club founder Michael Dubin to the Capitalism Conference and posted the interview on my podcast at capitalism.com. Michael told the story of his brand's humble beginnings. Michael hadn't started out as an entrepreneur. In fact, he'd started out at what could probably be termed the polar opposite, a comedian. Michael honed his comedy for years working with the Upright Citizens Brigade in various television and film writing rooms. He wasn't looking for a business opportunity at all when randomly one fell into his lap. A friend at a party told him that he was having trouble moving a huge shipment of razors he'd acquired from Asia. Michael was struck with an idea. What if instead of trying to get the razors on store shelves, he just shipped them directly to customers? He knew his exact audience. Every guy like him who was fed up with having to pay what seemed like a king's ransom every month for a few cheap blades. The basics of an idea hatched in his mind. Michael went about setting up the business plan and the distribution method, and when it came time to launch, he leaned on his comedy background to create a hilarious concept video aimed squarely at the identity his company targeted: younger men in their 20s and 30s who wanted a great shave that was both convenient and cheap. "Are our blades any good?" Michael asks in the first few seconds of the video, having cast himself as the hero of the brand's journey. "No, our blades are fucking great." Dollar Shave Club used humor and a brand story to appeal to its target audience. to create success right off the bat. It went from selling subscription service blades to selling a whole suite of inexpensive, convenient, and effective bathroom products shipped right to the customer's door. Were Dollar Shave Club razors that different from Gillette or any of its competitors? Not at the time, but they targeted a different person, and it worked. In 2016, Unilever bought Dollar Shave Club for $1 billion. It wasn't valued on the strength of repackaged razor blades from China. It was valued on Dollar Shave Club's ability to get the attention of its audience and turn it into customers. Most entrepreneurs fail because they try to make a product for everyone. They waste their money on mass advertising, using messaging that never connects with anyone. If you want people to pay attention, you need to market to a specific person, not just sell your thing. If you do this, you might actually get the attention of a big company that wants to acquire you. A company like Kimberly-Clark may buy one paper company that targets parties, another paper company that targets janitors, and another for families. It's the same with Unilever's purchase of Dollar Shave Club. These big companies aren't just buying up brands, they're buying up markets. In other words, if you carve out a specific group of people and tailor your brand specifically to them, you will attract raving fans and the attention of a future acquirer. In this book, you're going to learn how to tap into those markets in a way that these big companies can't. You're going to make yourself into the most attractive person in the room, and they're going to pursue you. Right now, I know you're pumped up and ready to jump into your business. I'm actually a little bit jealous of you. There's no way for me to go back in time and experience again what you're about to experience. I will be living vicariously through you until I can hear your full story in person. Before we jump into the step-by-step process, there's a little more context you need to absorb. Having a broad understanding of the opportunity landscape and understanding how identity marketing works for you are important, but they won't get you anywhere unless you first address the space between your ears. Taking the time to evaluate your mindset before going all in is possibly the best investment you could ever make before starting your entrepreneurial journey. Chapter 2: The Mindset of a Seven-Figure Entrepreneur. Most people stay poor for two reasons. One, they haven't followed a strategy that makes them rich. And two, they don't have the mindset of a wealthy person. I plan to help you with the first point. I believe the two most important steps to wealth are to build a business and invest the profits. This book will help you with the build a business part. However, it's up to you to reframe your mindset. The minute you reframe it, own it, and use it as leverage, you have a shot at success. Remember when I said entrepreneurs are unique, that we see the world differently than other people? I'll go even further with that assessment. Most entrepreneurs have chips on their shoulders. We are eager to prove others wrong. That is why we willingly take on so much stress and risk, betting our money and livelihoods on educated guesses. You might be excited by that idea because becoming an entrepreneur is particularly trendy right now. It's cool to chase your dreams and find wealth and freedom on the other side. A lot of people get into this line of work because they think it's the easy path to millions. Becoming an entrepreneur often really means 12-hour days, a lot of red in your bank account, and long nights working alone. It means weathering storm after storm without an end in sight and no one on earth backing you up. And no one, I repeat, no one will understand, except, of course, for other entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs tend to be very lonely people, and lonely people often make very good entrepreneurs. We share a particular psychology, and that psychology is weird. Over the years of being an entrepreneur myself and working with hundreds of entrepreneurs, I've noticed some downright identical patterns in mindset and behavior that can literally predict success or failure. In sharing our personal stories, I've also noticed that a huge number of us share very specific life experiences and have carried the incumbent baggage of those experiences into adulthood. I'd never claim that every entrepreneur thinks and acts the same, but there are very distinct patterns that play a significant role in how we operate. This isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's usually the secret sauce that leads us to higher levels of financial and creative success than the majority of the population. Without an awareness of what you're working with, and therefore the ability to guide and harness your mindset to propel you forward, you run the risk that your psyche will hold you back. Any person who truly wants to make a go at a successful $1 million business needs to do this work on themselves first before they step into building a brand. Looking back to move forward. When I was 11 years old, my parents separated. I know a lot of kids go through stuff like that, but I took it especially hard. I was a late bloomer, and I already felt out of place at my new middle school. I changed schools, wore oversized hand-me-downs to school every day, and found solace in computers, where I learned to type 100 words a minute and build websites. My mom went back to work. My dad left the house and went off to go rebuild his life. And me? I would come home from school to an empty house. There I was, my body changing, my world fractured, and I felt alone. That's a lot to figure out with no leadership and no strong role models. By the way, shout out to my mom and all single parents. I never realized as a kid how much her world was shattered at the same time. She had been a mom her whole adult life, and now she had to go figure out her own life, make money, and give up on her dreams. She worked so hard to take care of us. I could not appreciate how hard it was for her until now. Searching for male leadership and direction, I clung to male friends and sought out mentors. There were a few men at church who supported me and encouraged me, and I dove deep into my church youth group. During that time, I had a friend I really relied on. At a time when I truly needed to belong, he introduced me to the cool kids and made me feel like I fit in. I ate lunch with him every day. He helped me make new friends and even got me into some after-school activities. I admired him and followed him around for a year and a half. I dressed like him. I modeled him. I watched TV shows and read books based on his recommendations. I told jokes that I knew would make him laugh. He was kind, welcoming, and unassuming, and I was so thankful for him. During a time in my life when I felt like I'd been abandoned, he was a steady support. Until one day, when he looked up at me and said, "I find you really annoying. I'm only friends with you because I feel sorry for you." What? He also told me that my other friends talked about me behind my back, and I was never really part of their group. I remember everything about that moment. I remember the look in his eye and the careless and awkward laugh he let out after he told me all this. I even remember the black, long-sleeve shirt I was wearing. I cried when I went home that day, and I can't recall a time that I've ever felt more alone or more like a loser. I never went back to the lunch table with those kids. I skipped lunch and hid in the computer lab every day for the rest of the year. For the next 4 years, I avoided my former friend as though he'd physically injured me. I was afraid to even make eye contact with him. During our senior year, I got second place for most likely to succeed. I lost to him. I hated that he beat me. Toward the end of that year, he and I were in a small after-school group together. After 4 years of carrying around the hurt, insecurity, and fear, I worked up the courage to confront him. We were alone in a classroom, and it was awkwardly quiet. I cleared my throat and said, "Hey, can we talk about that day in 8th grade when we stopped being friends?" He looked at me funny. "Huh? You know, the day you said you didn't really like me and just felt sorry for me." "I never said that," he said. I felt like I'd been slapped. I remembered it so vividly. "Yes, you did. I've thought about it every day since then." He said again, "No, I don't remember that. Sorry." It took everything I had not to scream at him, punch him, or both. "What do you mean you don't remember? I literally hid in the computer lab every day after that." He shrugged. I was completely shocked and a little speechless, but I managed one more question. "We haven't talked in 4 years. We were friends, dude. Haven't you wondered why I disappeared from your life? He shrugged again. I don't know. I hadn't thought about it. I'm sorry. And that was that. He claimed no recollection of the incident. To be fair, we were just kids when he said that to me. And when I confronted him, he was 18 and his life was pretty well set in order. He was a school award winner and headed to a prestigious university in the fall. He had moved on, but I played that conversation over and over in my head for years. There are two reasons I wanted to tell you this story. First, every time I share it with another entrepreneur, they nod in recognition. Most entrepreneurs have felt alone at some point in their lives. They all have their own version of my story. A huge number of them are children of divorce, too. A common thread of abandonment, marginalization, and feeling dismissed and devalued seems to run through our experiences. If you're seeing some shade of yourself in my story, I want you to understand you're not alone. The second reason is actually far more important. If it weren't for that kid, I wouldn't be a millionaire today. You see, I hid in the computer lab every day because of him. And in the computer lab, I learned to build websites. I learned how to drive traffic. I learned how to write. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't be reading this book. If it weren't for him, you wouldn't go on to build the business that's going to set you free. My point isn't to preach some platitude about how everything happens for a reason. My point is that there are things in your life that have happened that weren't fair. And while you can't change that they happened, you can turn them into the fuel that will drive you to succeed. Those painful moments are the ones in which you either flee or take a stand and decide to make a change. Taking ownership. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's a pattern, maybe it's universal, but every entrepreneur I've met relates to this story, or relates at least to the idea of feeling alone. Suddenly, with no warning or expectation, they had to make all the decisions and live with the consequences. At some point in their lives, they said to themselves, "No one is going to take care of me, so I will take care of myself." That kind of pressure is a baptism of sorts. And I believe this is where the entrepreneur mindset begins. An entrepreneur is someone who takes responsibility for a problem and does something about it. Sometimes that problem is that you are broke and you don't want to be broke anymore. Sometimes that problem is that your life sucks and you're finally ready to do something about it. Or your kids have no future and it's time that you stepped up to the plate, stopped blaming other people or forces, and changed things for the better. An entrepreneur solves problems that someone else created. An entrepreneur takes responsibility in order to create change. I consider every challenge, every painful moment, and everything that I have had to overcome to be a necessary part of my journey. It's an empowering thing when you realize that no one is coming to save you. No one is going to put your life together for you. No one is going to make you $1 million. Some people are held back by a belief that money is scarce and hard to come by. Those people allow that belief to form their worldview, which in turn triggers their actions. If you believe money is scarce and hard to come by, you sure as hell won't take the risk of quitting a crappy job to go after a more lucrative but less certain future. You'll take the safe route. Other people are held back by the belief that making money is selfish and that rich people are bad. These people could never become entrepreneurs because the very objective driving a business forward, profit baby, is something they can't stomach. They've likely been made to feel bad about it at some point in their lives. They might even project that onto other people and try to make them feel bad about making money. I could give my plan to one person who uses it to build a multi-million-dollar business. I could give the same plan to a different person and have them call me a scam artist. Your world is what you believe it is, if you choose to take ownership for your worldview and your results. Quick note, when I talk about doing the work on yourself, I don't just mean reading this chapter. This is my call to awareness, nothing more. Sit with this, think about it, and take the time to honestly evaluate your mindset. If that honest self-evaluation brings up any self-doubt or the fear of failure, there's a podcast I want you to listen to. It's not about business, it's about slaying these demons. It's called You Are Enough, and you will find it at capitalism.com/best. Take care of yourself first. One of my rules of entrepreneurship is to take care of yourself first. I learned this one the hard way by repeatedly working myself into the ground. You are the driver of your business, and businesses reflect their leaders. Your habits, your culture, and your morals all permeate the business and products you create. You must take care of yourself physically and mentally so that you can create and serve others. The most profitable thing you can do is look after the driver, yourself. Entrepreneurship can create stress, and stress breeds bad decisions. You can't force good ideas. That's why my friend Peter Shallard, the self-titled Shrink for Entrepreneurs, says that the primary goal of an entrepreneur is to stay in the mode where work is easy. Eat healthy, get exercise, and take the breaks you need. Taking care of yourself also means taking care of other stakeholders, your customers, your employees, and your investors, and being mindful of your ads and how you interact on social media. The ends don't necessarily justify the means either. If you're unhappy with the process, you are likely to be unhappy with the results. When I've worked on ideas in the past, and they haven't been enjoyable throughout, I've never liked the end result. While you should definitely prepare for hard work, you shouldn't have to suffer through misery for an idea. Here's the difference. If you are working to prove something or to overcome your mental blocks, then you will run into stress, burnout, frustration, and failure. I call it scaling unhappiness. However, if you are creating from a place of abundance and genuinely serving others in the process, then life and business is deliriously enjoyable. When I've been most successful, I can trace it back to how much I enjoyed the journey. When Matt and I worked on Sheer Strength, we were driven by our passion for the products and the idea of making something we both wanted to buy. Every time we stopped ourselves and listened to the market or to new trends, we hit a roadblock. Those bad decisions cost us time and money. Right now, I'm working on a new food company. The project is a blast, and it's either going to be the most successful thing I've ever done or the best time I'll ever have on a failure. Either way, the project is enjoyable, and that is a worthy goal. Make sure you're enjoying the ride you're on, or I can guarantee you'll burn out. The pursuit is worth it. Elon Musk is lonely. He has been public about this. When you're running 3 companies that are changing the world, you don't have much time for a girlfriend, a social life, or for pretty much anything else. To be perfectly frank, I don't know a lot of balanced entrepreneurs. The happy person with the perfect work-life balance doesn't usually become a rock star entrepreneur. This game requires you to carry the load on your shoulders and press on in the face of fear. Whether it's your first business or your 100th, you're going to ask yourself the same questions at some point. Is this going to fall apart? Am I going to be found out as a fraud? Did one of my competitors already come up with a better version of this? That little voice breaks most people. True-born entrepreneurs move through it because they've been working through fear their whole lives. I'm not going to claim that I've never wondered if this is all worth it. In fact, I've spent countless nights wondering if I would be happier if I just had smaller goals. I have family members who encourage me to take extended time off, and every time I do, I feel like the free agent who can't wait to get back into the game. However, there was one time, following the sale of Sheer Strength, when I felt particularly depressed about the game of entrepreneurship. I'd made that $10 million payday, but I didn't feel any happier. Around that time, I just happened to find myself at dinner with entrepreneur and author Tim Ferriss. He had recently moved to Austin, and a friend of mine invited me to dinner with him and Tim. We talked about everything from religion to business to relationships, but I had one burning question that I wanted to ask. Tim, there's one thing.